Right. The Electoral Commission of South Africa has launched its annual student-targeted democracy campaign at Rhodes University in Makhanda, Eastern Cape. The objective of this campaign is to educate the youth at tertiary institutions about their civic and democratic rights and responsibilities. The IEC says this campaign aims to encourage the youth to participate in voting. The Commission says low voter turnout is still a challenge, especially amongst young people. Karabo, Mokgonyana, a legal and development practitioner and program director at the Sesi Fellowship and Skill Hub, joins us now. Very good afternoon to you, and thank you very much for joining us here on SABC News.
Thank you so much for having me, Flo.
You're most welcome. Let's talk about, why you think young South Africans, do not vote. Is it a case of they don't believe that, their vote counts or it matters, or just really just despondent? What is at the root of this problem?
Okay, so I would say there are various things. So it's not just one thing. And I think at the core of it is the distrust in our electoral and political processes.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of the leadership and basically the lack of ethical leadership that we are seeing in a lot of our governance, both from local to national. I mean, the example with Dr. Mokgonyana is a really good one. It comes at like a timely part of this conversation, but also just around service delivery and whether the needs of young people are actually being delivered. Young people actually want jobs, So unemployment, entrepreneurship support, issues relating to community violence, gender-based violence, crime rates. So there's a lot of issues that young people tend to bring forward, and a lot of those are not necessarily met. So there's frustration around, what is our vote actually doing for us?
Yeah, but I mean, even with that frustration, is there no clarity, on the fact that, you can change this for yourself? If you're not voting, then things will probably remain the same. I mean, you talk about the fact that they lament the lack of ethical leadership, the issue of service delivery, crime, etc., joblessness. I mean, these are things that, if you were to put across somewhere where you think maybe something might change, you'd be able to make that change. Is there not enough, perhaps, voter education when it comes to the youth and how important it may be to make those particular changes?
Yes, definitely. I think there is a lack of civic education, and one that is directed towards the importance of being active citizens and how, the votes and public participation actually plays a big part in the ethical leadership that we want to see, the policies and the programs that we actually want to see being implemented that actually serve our needs as young people. And that civic education is so crucial. And I think that our school system doesn't do justice to it. I mean, even IEC launching this, it's not going to reach every young person. So I think also just in the communication, we need to make sure we have a variety of ways to get the message across and to actually have a lot of young people understand the value and the power. So I think we underestimate the power that our votes actually have. And we do need to have more young people actually become aware of that.
And apart from awareness, I mean, there's also the issue that some have raised, about young people not being involved in decision making. And it's quite clear that young people have a lot to say. I mean, if you're watching, what's playing out at some of the universities at the moment, you can clearly hear that young people have a lot to say and have a lot to contribute to how certain sectors should be operating. So is this a problem that the youth themselves are highlighting well enough? I mean, we have these people, these older people in these various positions who are making decisions for them while perhaps not involving the youth themselves.
Yeah, I would say there's an intergenerational gap between the old people who are making the decisions and younger people as well, because there's a lot of clashes whenever we find ourselves in the same spaces. Young people are viewed as these rebellious, people who don't want to listen, people who are incapable of making, or taking up such big spaces and positions. Whereas the older generation then feels like they then have to spear this because, there's things like cater deployment, they've been there, they have the knowledge, the skills, and rightfully so. But we need to bring bridge that intergenerational gap between the younger and the older to be like, we absolutely need to work together, because the continuity of a lot of the things that are happening is not going to be sustained if it's just the older generation. But at the same time, as young people, we do need the older generation, because we're not just going to get in and start running an entire government. So we do need to really have a balance between the younger and the older generation. But at the same time, I think then we need then representation to really increase. We need to see young people on candidate lists, whether it's at local government or national government. We really need to see the numbers actually increase. And that way, we actually then have proper representation that is able to push for youth issues. Currently, there are not a lot of young people. And if you have a minority of young people, unfortunately, their voices are very, it's a minority voice in a space where older generations are there, and they cannot really resonate with the issues that we go through as young people. But I also just want to mention something around the voting process, just the technicalities. I think as a country, we may need to reconsider, or at least consider, a hybrid system. Truth be told, yes, we do have a digital divide, and that's why it's important to still continue the hybrid system. But maybe the country needs to now consider digital or electronic voting, because young people are on their phones. Young people, it's more convenient as opposed to going to a station, waiting for 2 hours. A 5-minute vote on my phone could actually do well. And if it's like a data issue, then make sure your voting platform is data-free, a data-free voting platform. And that will see voter increase in young people.
Yeah, do you think we're at that point yet? We already have technical issues and glitches when it comes to the current voting system that we had. One would wonder about the chaos that might ensue should we, move to a sort of what you've called a hybrid voting system, or electronic voting system. I think that might be one of the bigger issues.
I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful.
Yeah.
I think that, I think with a lot of the innovations around, like, young people could actually spear the innovation around, the checks and balances, because definitely technology has, its flaws when it comes to the electoral processes. But however, I think we can learn best practices from other countries. And also then I do feel like if we want the numbers to increase, we're going to have to start having that conversation, because also young people would rather just be at home chilling as opposed to being in a 3-hour line wanting to vote for things that we view as change is not going to come.
Yeah. All right. Interesting indeed. Karabo, great pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for giving us your time here on SABC News. That's Karabo Mokgonyana, legal and development practitioner and program director at the Sesi Fellowship and Skill Hub.